right, man. Let's talk about catch up. Talk about the legend Too Short, who I believe just dropped a project.
Yes, sir,
if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
This is Too Short said thanks, but no thanks to Tupac.
One day we rode in my truck and Tupac and Shorty B jumped in the truck with me, and I noticed that he had a pistol on him. And I was just thinking to myself, I carry guns a lot. You would never know, because I'm from Oakland, and I just wouldn't let an Oakland or any other know that I got my thing on me at the time. It's just something you just don't do. I just noticed it, and it just struck me. I was like, I can't really get really close to this guy, because I knew what he was getting into. And I was like, if my guys catch wind of his ambition, they're going to cling to him.
Got it.
And I'm like, he could find his way anywhere he wants in the world, but I'm not bringing him to where I'm at.
Yeah.
I could tell that he wanted the streets. And I had seen his interviews too, where he was talking the revolutionary talk. So I knew his layers, but I was like, I can't tap into that part of him with the pistol on him hanging out in Oakland. There's some places I just can't bring him. I definitely can't bring him if he's going to let people know he got that on him. I personally avoided ambitious Tupac because he probably would have ended up in some spaces around me. Like he did it though, bro. Like when he went to LA, he ended up in those circles and he went all the way. Just what I thought he would do is what he did. He was like, I want to be that gangster, revolutionary, everything. I want to be the ladies man. I want to be the biggest rapper. Like he had that ambition. I was like, get that for me. I didn't want to be a bad influence on Tupac. You know, that was just my choice.
So what do y'all think about that? Smart move by Short, considering that he saw clearly that Pac was on his way to becoming something, but he chose to take the OG route. What do you guys think about that? Was that a smart move?
I don't think he was talking about him. I think he saw the vision with him being a star.
Right.
You know, that is not really what he's talking about, what bothered him. It was like his ambition to basically almost be what he was rapping about.
Yeah.
You know, and also, you know, Too Short is about 4 or 5 years older than Tupac. And that doesn't sound like a lot when you're talking about, okay, these guys in the early 90s. But look, man, I guess if there's a big difference between, say, 21 and 26.
26, yeah.
You know.
And 15 even.
Yeah. There's a big difference. You know, think about the difference between 15 and 20. You know, every time when you think about the difference between, I mean, it slows down once you get older. You know, like I just turned 48. 43 is not that much different than 48.
It's not.
But, you know, I think that's what we're talking about. Somebody who has seen a little bit more and saw the direction in which Tupac was going, some of it positive, some of it negative.
Right.
You know, because I always say there's a spirit of Tupac that some of it was lost after Suge or Interscope or whoever you believe actually paid the money to get him out of jail.
True.
You know, prison rather. He always had those flashes of, if you listen to Pac, it was always about the revolution, what we need to do as a black community, this, that, and third. And there was a little bit of that on All Eyes on Me, but it was mostly a celebratory gangster rap album, you know, and
just got out of jail.
I mean, and I can't be mad at him. You know what I'm saying? If I had been locked up for 9 months away from, you know, women and smoke and and whatever it is that he was indulging in at the time. Yeah, just what it is that comes with being a superstar, you know, entertainer. Yeah, that's what I'm going to rap about for 2 whole albums. Now, you got to Machiavelli, and we kind of got back to...
You definitely got back to
you know, when we talk about, you know, really talking about... I mean, once he was still on that gangster, he was. You know, dissing De La Soul and whatnot, and I think that was a bit much, but I think that's what that negative side that Tupac gravitated to, that, you know, he's like, okay, we got to go... Somebody stole a chain and we got to go kick him in a casino. That's what Too Short is talking about.
Yeah, that was excessive.
Very excessive. That's what he said, man, I can't be around this dude and have my people around him, because that's going to be not only the downfall. Like, think about how many people, because of that one moment in time, either aren't here or are locked up, or, you know, there was a ripple effect to that one incident that was very negative. And like, if you see that and what that could be, I can understand why Too Short has said, let me just kind of pump the brakes on that.
Yeah, and it's more so of him also knowing that he's putting Pac in a compromising situation to where Pac may not actually see it, but he knows the circles he run in. if he's acting a certain way, they're going to do a certain thing to Pac. And then at the same token, Pac was a sponge. Like, so we talk about his upbringing and how his mom was in the Black Panther. His dad was a Black Panther as well. He's from a very politically strong background.
Facts.
So these are in you know what I'm saying, ingrained in his actual being. And I feel like he wanted to have the Black experience as a whole. So it's like anything that was Black and that was of the struggle and that was for like empowerment and that was for like coming from a rose that grew out of the concrete, so to speak. He was trying to experience that. And that's why he kind of embraced, a lot of people said when he played Bishop, he turned into a different person. It's like he embraced that character and that character became a part of him. Like, even if you think about his albums before then, Apocalypse Now, Strictly for My Niggas, then those were politically charged albums. I want to say he was recording Juice around the time Strictly for My Niggas came out. It might have came out right before or right after.
I think it was after, because that's kind of the poetic, it was a poetic justice, and he had the second album is around that time where you said, okay, this guy is definitely a star. He's just not an underground rapper.
Yeah, but he was definitely different after he played that Bishop character. And,
a little more gangster.
Well, not Bishop. Bishop, and then he played Birdie
and Above
the Rim. Those were kind of similar in fabric.
Those are very similar.
He embraced those images of the culture that he's playing these characters. But all of that became a part of him.
Right.
It's like he's absorbing everything like a Super Saiyan or something, and he became Super Pac, so to speak. He's in the casino going crazy, stomping somebody out, and end up meeting his demise because of that situation. And I feel like what Too Short is saying is he just didn't want to put him in a compromising position where he might possibly lose his life or be too engulfed in something to where he just wants to do it so much. He's like, I'm just not going to put him in that position.
I think it's extremely dope that he made this choice, especially after hearing him explain it. Excuse me, because he saw Jay Moore's point about the potential, what this kid can be, right? But he also saw the side where he might be a live wire too. So I have to be mindful. He is one. Excuse me, he is one. So it'll be in his best interest that he not roll with us and do XYZ. I think that's dope, and I think that is something that probably aided Pac in his trajectory, because who knows what could have happened if he just stayed out in Oakland and was reckless and Short didn't care enough to pull him to the side. So I can respect it. I can respect that. And I think it's also dope that we have older rappers that are around to tell these stories and have a perspective that we may not have heard, because I wouldn't have known this if, Too Short didn't say it. I never would have known anything about this. So, we have to appreciate the older rappers when we have them, especially when they tell a lot of these stories that we haven't heard.
And it's also a case of the OG not putting a battery in his back to act out.
That part.
Because we see a whole lot of that. Like, even if you do see a older OG, so to speak, rapper or somebody is in the spotlight, it's like they want the youngin' to be just like them or worse. So I'm gonna put the battery in your back. I'm gonna hype you up to do something.
Crash out.
I'm gonna hype you up to do something, crash out, and might land you in a particular situation, but I'm gonna still be out here and I'm gonna just put some money on your books and shout you out on a couple of albums here.
Yeah. No, I'm with that, man. I had Lone, you got anything to add to that, or?
No, I think you guys covered it. Shouts to Dregs One, whose podcast it is. I think it's Dregs, Dregs. I don't know how he says his name.
I believe it's Dregs. I think it's Dregs One.
Dregs One.
It's called the West.
It's something about the Bay
Area podcast or something like that. I believe
it's called the.
Make sure we called it right.
History of the Bay podcast.
History of the Bay. Yeah.
Okay.
So he's got over 100 episodes, so check that out.
And Short been putting music out since like 83, 84, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna run that new project too.
What about are there any other artists with similar qualities of a young Tupac in the same way that you were kind of referencing that you can see?
That embody that. Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about how J. Cole referenced what's my guy from Florida?
XX?
No, not XX.
Kodak.
He took the OG role by letting Kodak know, and even he talks about he's actually talked to Kodak trying to give him the blueprint on, I see where you're going, but this ain't the way. And J. Cole ain't even from that background, so to speak. But as an OG in the game, it's like you have real talent. You need to use that real talent and get from around them people that are trying to pretty much big you up and push you to be more of this reckless human being. And then as soon as you get locked up, they're nowhere to be seen. So I mean, I would say probably a J. Cole.
I like that comparison.
That's more so of a Too Short rule as opposed
Where he's
to
a Too Short, as opposed
as
opposed to
Tupac.
Pac.
or like an OG, like trying to.
I feel like Kendrick kind of embodies a little bit of this, even though he's a younger one. Kind of like I don't know if it's to the same degree, but kind of how he's. You could argue the pop out, bringing the city together in that particular way. You could the fact that he put the artists on his project that he did. You could potentially make that argument to some degree that he's looking out for those up and coming in a particular type of way.
Yeah. Because this version of Pac that he's talking about, he mentioned how super ambitious he was, but he also talked about how he acknowledged his political stance and, how he talked about things and the Black Panthers and all that. So Kendrick checks off a lot of those boxes in terms of his music as well. You know what I'm saying? Now, he might not be quite as, what's the word I'm looking for, boisterous or, outgoing, but the actual plan and the way that he executes things and his subject matter, the content, is something that I could see similarities.
I would say a Master P. And the reason why I say that is because Master P seen that Snoop was in a position to where things might go grim for him.
Yeah, that's true.
So he signed him to No Limit Records, moved him to New Orleans or a suburb of New Orleans, whatever, and pretty much was like, no, you cannot go back to LA right now. And so he stayed in LA for like a couple years. Like anybody from LA that wanted to work with Snoop had to come to New Orleans. He was pretty much putting him in a position to be a boss, so to speak. And we see how, Snoop turned out based off of that situation.
He speaks highly about that to this day. He said that changed everything in his life.
Because the thing is, this is where you have to give Master P his credit, because Snoop was about to sign with, of all people, Mac 10. Mac 10 had a situation at the time, and he was going to put out an album called Fuck Death Row. Now, even with Suge being in prison, that just wasn't going to work.
Not
so,
smart.
like, Master P had the wherewithal to say, not only you're not going to record that album with that kind of content and that title, let's get down here. We're going to get you a place. We're going to make sure your family's straight.
Yeah.
And, you're going to be an artist. You're going to be in a situation where you can create as opposed to having to worry about the streets. So you have to give Master P his credit for a lot of things. Absolutely. Specifically, we talk about mentorship and somebody pulling you to the side. You have to do that. But I do, what I do, and I don't know if this is, I don't want to put this on J. Cole and his influence of what, with Kodak, sometimes we got to say the positive too. I saw a story where Kodak, he paid like 100 people's rent for 2 months.
That's dope.
Yeah, I saw that too.
That's dope.
And he made sure that they had working air conditioners.
That's dope.
So I know we get on rappers about, all they could do with their money as opposed to, bottle service and chains. And, Kodak Black, he put his money, it isn't anything he put out. I just happened to see somebody else talking about it. So I was like, look,
I like that too.
Sometimes, hey man, we got to highlight the positive, because we get on these rappers a lot of times, especially the young ones, because it's like, why are you in and out of jail? Why are you spending your money crazy like that when you know it's going to run out? And here it is. You just never know how that may come back to Kodak. But, and like I said, he didn't want a whole lot of publicity about it, but I have to go ahead and shout him out for doing something like that. Cause that's the community that we talk about.
Yeah.
When Pac was alive, that's what the spirit of that was in his music, when he wasn't veered so far to the gangster side.
True.
But shout out to Kodak Black for helping out those people who needed their rent paid for a couple months.
That's huge.
Yeah.
He did it for actually 2 months.
Yeah.
He paid rent for over 200 residents in Golden Acres.
Nice.
For 2 months. But back in 2022, it says here he also stepped in and helped 28 families who were facing eviction due to unpaid rent. And then the air conditioner thing, 100 air conditioners to families in his hometown in 2021.
That's solid.
So
That's solid, bro.
Stuff you don't really hear about that often.
And that's definitely cut.
in the news, you know.
Right.
Yeah, but like
And that's cut from that cloth that we're talking about.
And I'm sure that happens a
All
lot.
the time,
And it's
I'm
not
sure.
publicized, but I mean, it's just cool to hear about it. I mean, Jay did the same thing with Memphis Bleak. Now, his situation didn't pan out like he probably would have thought he wanted it to. But when Jay was recording his second album, Bleak wasn't around like he was supposed to be. He was being late to studio sessions. He was in the streets. Jay pretty much was like, you ain't on the album. We got to get you right, remove you from that situation, from that environment. Things are different now.
Mm-hmm.
So you cannot worry about what's going on in the Marcy because we're developing ourselves to, you know what I'm saying?
We're leveling up.
We're leveling up. So if that's what you want to do, then you're not going to be on the project. And that was the light that went off in Memphis Bleak's head. Like, let me get on the straight and narrow. In turn, you hear Jay talk about his situation with Bleak. It doesn't matter what his position is. He's going to remain taken care of because of whatever alliance and how he sees fit as far as how he came up and left the bullshit alone in order to be down with the crew and actually elevate themselves. So
As long as I'm alive, the millionaire.
yeah,
I believe him.
yeah.
Nah, man, shout out to Short for making what I call a very good decision with a young Pac.
And shout out to Short for just being still here and still thriving and
True.
able
He's
to
had
make
a baby at like 50.
no
Yeah.
crazy, right?
Short got to be what, 56, 55
He was
at this
born
point?
in '66, so yeah.
He 50 something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he's in his 50s.
I'm going to listen to that record.